Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and we are honored to have a special guest with us today, Craig Meriwether. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist. Hypnotherapist.
Hypnotherapist.
I know. Right when I said it, I was like, "Dang it!" Right? Hypnotherapist, NLP specialist, and the founder of Arizona's Integrative Hypnotherapy. Right, and you already know with the Mindset Cafe, we're all about personal development. We're all about trying to make ourselves better. So this is going to be a new twist that we haven't been able to have the honor of talking to someone about, hypnotherapy yet. So I'm really excited about this. Craig, thank you so much for taking the time and getting ready to drop some knowledge on the listeners.
Yeah, Devin, I appreciate you inviting me. It's been looking forward to this for a while. And yeah, hypnotherapy is a extraordinary modality, if you will, to help you with your mindset. So I thought it was a great match, and yeah, I'm ready to get going.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into it. Let's dive into your background a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
what led you into what led you into hypnotherapy? What was your calling towards that?
It was actually my, using it for myself and my own issues that I was dealing with in my life. I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety, starting around the teenage years. And this is the 1980s, way back when. And, of course, no internet back then that at least was available to us. And, the SSRI drugs, Prozacs and things, those didn't come out till the mid 1990s, late 1990s. And so it was really just kind of talk therapy and whatever book you might be able to find at the bookstore or the library. And so, and being a, teenager, probably not going to do anything anyway, because it just, settled into it. But it was really the birth of my son in the year 2001 that I really just thought I need to get a handle on this, because my mother struggled with depression. I struggled with depression and anxiety. And so, a good chance my son's going to struggle with it too, whether it's nature or nurture, whether he's just matching what's in the home, what he's seeing me do, or it's a genetic thing. And so I wanted to, help myself so I could show him there are ways of dealing with it. Sometimes you'll step up for somebody else if you won't step up for yourself. And so with some trial and error, and of course, my wife and I are doing careers. We moved to a different city, and we're raising have a baby. So it was a lot of, on and off and trial and error. But one of the things that really helped me was actually going to a hypnotherapist, because I was reading a lot of the personal, and had been up to that point in the 1990s, reading a lot of the personal development stuff, Tony Robbins and all that. And it seemed like every article, and then when the internet came out, blog posts and interviews you listen to, they'd have the 5 things you could do to change your life. And 4 of them would be different, but there was always a constant. Everybody was always talking about hypnotherapy. And so I found somebody who I could work with, and it really helped. And the reason why, at least I liked it so much, and the reason it's so helpful for people, is because you can dive into that unconscious part of your mind where a lot of this hurt and pain is held, where the instructions on how to react to your world are held. And those instructions on how to feel safe, how to feel protected in the world, may have been set up when you were a child, because maybe it wasn't very safe when you were growing up. Maybe the best thing you could do as a child was to hide, and to keep your voice small, and to keep yourself safe by hiding. So if those instructions don't get changed, they're still going to be in there in your 20s and 30s and 40s. So what I like about hypnotherapy is it's not talk therapy. It's very different. Talk therapy can be very useful, very helpful, but sometimes people, I think, start spinning their wheels in talk therapy because they're not talking about the core issue, the root issue, because they don't know what it is. It's behind that curtain in the unconscious mind. So what neuroscience tells us is that that subconscious part of mind, that unconscious part of mind makes up 95% of your mind. Conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. So with talk therapy, it can be, again, very useful. But if you're trying to use 5% of mind to really dig into that 95, it's not really going to work. And so what's nice about hypnotherapy is that by quieting down the mind and body, just through some simple relaxation techniques, you can access that unconscious part of mind, and the healing happens really quickly.
So
It doesn't take a
that
long time.
no, that I mean that's so awesome, and I think it's so true because I mean I like to talk to people about even because I mean I'm in the fitness industry, mainly, right? Besides the podcast, so like with my gym and with the franchises and stuff, I tell people it's all comes down to like self-talk as well, right? Everything begins and ends with your mind, right? It all
Right.
starts with your belief in yourself, and it ends if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe it's gonna work, well then it's not gonna work. And so
Right.
that subconscious mind is so true. Like it is so much bigger and it is so much more than you even want to believe. So that 90, 95 and 5 is honestly, I didn't even realize that the ratio would be that big, but I honestly
Yeah.
don't even doubt it because
Mm.
you hear those little analogies like fake it till you make it, or
Yeah.
just keep doing it until you start to believe it, right? And it's like all those things, and it's because if you tell yourself something long enough, like just like if someone is going to tell them, they tell a lie so many times, they start to believe their own lie,
Mhm.
right? And it's because your subconscious picks up, it doesn't know what reality is, it goes off of what you're telling it reality is, right?
Right.
So I think that's so awesome. Can you explain though what the difference is between like talk therapy and like hypnotherapy? Because it kind of sounds like hypnotherapy is a little bit like meditation, but again, me not knowing as
Yeah.
much about it, you know, and obviously when you think hypnosis or anything, you're thinking of like the and like
Yeah. Yeah.
the old cartoons with like the spinning thing.
Yeah.
But can you explain that a little bit for us?
Yeah. So hypnotherapy, it's not like you see in the movies. It doesn't turn you into some sort of voodoo zombie in some sort of weird trance state. It's just slight relaxation. You don't even have to go super deep. There are various levels of altered states of consciousness, but it's basically brainwave state. And your brainwave state is just determined on how fast the neurons in your brain are firing. So to walk down the street, to drive a car, to get on the computer and start, writing your book or writing an email or something, anything, when you do anything, think a thought, feel an emotion, perform an action, you're firing brain cells. And how fast those brain cells are communicating with each other and linking together determines on the brainwave state. The famous ones we learned about in school are beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And beta's consciousness is what you and I are in right now, Devin. We're like having a conversation, we're having a discussion, we're listening to each other. So we're firing about 18 cycles per second. And a wave moves from the back to the front to the back again. That's one wave, 18, 20 cycles per second. Now, let's say I'm back in high school math class and I'm paying attention because it's going to be on the final exam and I need to do well. I'm not doing very well in the class. So I really got to do well on this test. I'm writing all the equations down, figuring out how to do them. And then it's just really boring for me. But I'm in the beta brainwave state. I'm concentrating. I'm in consciousness. But then I just kind of start staring out the window and I start thinking about the weekend and how much fun it's going to be, going to hang out with my friends. And now I've just slowed down my brainwave state. I've turned off the external world and I moved inward. I moved into a daydreamy kind of state. Well, now I'm in the alpha brainwave state, firing to maybe about 14 or 12 cycles per second. And then I start doing one of these. My head's falling down and my eyes are closed. I'm not really asleep, but I'm not really awake either. Now I'm in a theta brainwave state. I'm not really in control of my conscious thoughts like you can in maybe the alpha brainwave state. So now I'm firing about 6 cycles per second. In a minute, I'm going to be down in delta. I'm going to be fast asleep. 1 cycle, half cycle per second. And then the teacher sees me and says, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And so I jolt myself awake. I'm looking around. Everybody's staring at me. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to do the problem on the board because I wasn't paying attention. And now I'm stressed and I'm really anxious. And I'm firing to maybe 30 cycles per second in high beta in the stress response. And so just in that period of, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 minutes, I've altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times. And so it's not anything unusual. It's not anything you're not doing already multiple times a day, moving in and out of various states of consciousness. We just take advantage of this. So this isn't taking away control, because I know that's a big misnomer and a big kind of fear around hypnotherapy. This, oh, they're going to take control away from me and all that. Really, this is giving you back control, because I can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. So that's why smoking cessation, which is what hypnotherapy is really famous for, helping people to quit smoking. That's why it's not 100% guaranteed, because if the person doesn't want to quit smoking, they're not going to quit smoking. They don't want to. That's why I can't go into bars and Las Vegas casinos and just, take out my watch, my pocket watch, and get everybody to stop smoking, because they don't want to. I can't go to prisons and hypnotize everybody to be a law-abiding, upstanding citizen. I can't, go to the world leaders and create world peace. I can't get Elon Musk to, write me $1 billion check because he doesn't want to. I can't hypnotize him to write me $1 billion check. The reason I don't have one is because he doesn't want to write me one. So I can't control other people. It's actually handing you back control. And in and of itself, I'm not going to fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix anybody. You're going to fix yourself. Because who better to know what the problem is than you? And who better to know what to do about it than you, even if it's within that unconscious mind. And so it's really, again, about giving you back control, because really a lot of people coming to a hypnotherapy session, they're in chronic anxiety. They have anger problems. They feel a lot of maybe holding on to that heaviness of trauma they may have experienced decades ago. So really you're kind of hypnotized already, because you're reacting to your world automatically in a way you don't like, creating that anxiety, creating that anger, or feeling that trauma. And I'm guessing, there may be some rare cases, but I'm guessing you're not anxious all the time, and you're not angry all the time. And so it's only happening in certain circumstances. I know people who are the nicest, most lovely people in the world, and yet you get them behind the wheel of a car on a freeway in rush hour traffic, and they are the most angriest people, spewing the most vile things at other people that you've ever heard. And it's like, where does this come from? They have hypnotized themselves to be in that, when they're triggered in certain circumstances and situations and events, to literally change their personality. So they're already out of control. So this is really handing them back control. It's not hypnotizing them, it's dehypnotizing them from those old, ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So this is really giving back control. And I know people maybe have seen those shows in Las Vegas or comedy clubs, those hypnotist shows. And, everybody's up there singing like Elvis Presley, or dancing like Michael Jackson, or pretending they're on a roller coaster, or quacking like ducks, or barking like dogs, or whatever. And understand that everybody who gets up on the stage volunteered to be up there. No one's made to be up there. Those shows are expensive, especially in Vegas. Even if it's maybe not a celebrity name, they're still like $80 a ticket. And so they have to give a show. And so people buy a ticket, they go into the show, and then they volunteer by raising their hands. Hopefully they get picked because they're really excited. They get up there, and where are you from, and what's your name, and do you want to go into hypnosis and have a fun time? And yes. They say yes like 7 times before this guy makes them do something. And so that's why those shows are fun, because everybody up there wants to be up there. They're exhibitionists, they're extroverts. They, want to have a fun time. And they do. Look at the end of the show. They have a big smile on their face. They had a great time. So you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. This isn't like, hypnotizing Jason Bourne to assassinate the prime minister. You can't do that. That's not the way it works. What we're dealing with is the subconscious part of mind. Now, we were talking about, a little bit ago, so 95% of control of mind is the unconscious. That seems pretty extraordinary. But when you think about the unconscious part of mind, it's running your immune system. It's running your digestive system. It's your respiratory, your heart. You don't have to think about these things. And luckily you don't. Splitting our cells, growing our hair. All this stuff is happening automatically, growing our bodies from, being 1 day old to being an adult. All this stuff we don't have to think about is happening automatically under the control of the subconscious mind. It's also holding on to those little habits that we have of tying our shoes and zipping up our jacket and riding a bicycle, driving a car, walking down the street. All these are held within the unconscious part of mind, but its main job is to keep you safe and protected. And it does this by holding on to the hurt and the pain you may have experienced in your life, the trauma. So it has this kind of like filing cabinet and files of all the things that have caused hurt and pain and anger and anxiety and embarrassment and humiliation. The real deep stuff, like the trauma maybe somebody experienced growing up, or even the embarrassment of not knowing how to do the math problem in math class. Holds on to all these because it doesn't want to experience it again. It's trying to protect you from the hurt and pain you've experienced in the past. So all you're experiencing in your world through what you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell through your five senses is being filtered through this filing cabinet. And if anything triggers one of those files, the alarms go off because it thinks you're in danger. And so, if you're in a building and somebody pulls a fire alarm, the sirens go off, the lights go off, trying to warn you that there's danger and you need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system, but instead of lights and sirens, we have feeling states. So the feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of anger, of overwhelm, of worry, of fear is warning the mind, warning you through changing the chemistry in the brain and creating a feeling state in the body that there is danger somewhere. The problem is your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And this is most noticeable, let's say when somebody's having a nightmare in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter how crazy, how stupid, how ridiculous the nightmare may be. A gigantic cheeseburger and his two hot dog friends are chasing it on the street throwing coconuts at you. It's dumb. It's never going to happen. But your mind can't tell whether that's real or just a crazy dream. And so it has the safety protocol of shoot first, ask questions later. And it'll turn on the stress response, even deep sleep. And that's pretty an extraordinary thing to do. It takes a lot of effort to turn on the stress response. You have to change brain chemistry, start creating adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline, you probably, Devin, and probably your listeners heard those crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies.
Mhm.
That's adrenaline doing that. That's now coursing through your bloodstream. 300% more blood is moving to big muscles of your arms to fight, 300% more blood, big muscles of your legs to escape. It's got to come from somewhere. So the power in your immune system is turning down, power in your digestive system. This is why people get sick when they're stressed, why they get irritable bowel syndrome when they are in chronic anxiety. And that's a lot of effort in the middle of the night while you're in deep sleep. But it's trying to protect you. It's not against you. It just thinks you're in danger. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So what's happening in your waking world? What are the perceptions you have about your world that make you think you're unsafe? And then you're creating that anxiety loop over and over again. It's all that information, the instructions that have been stored in your unconscious mind. Well, that's the subconscious part of mind. It's all of that, this kind of emotionalized part of mind that's trying to protect you and keep you safe in your world. The conscious part of mind, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind that creates your goals and your plans to reach those goals, and the willpower to get to the gym, early before you go to work. But again, conscious mind only makes up that logical, analytical part of mind only makes up 5% of mind. 95% of mind is that subconscious part of mind. So when there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. And that's why, especially you've seen this, Devin, when somebody's like, dedicated to their health and they want to get in shape, they want to lose the weight, and they got a plan. They come to you and they're working with personal trainers and they're going to the gym and they're eating right. They're having oatmeal for breakfast and a salad for lunch and salmon for dinner. And then at 10 o'clock at night, they're eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's. That logically makes absolutely no sense because they have a plan on how they're going to get into shape. But somewhere along their day, something went wrong and they now need to comfort themselves. And maybe when they were 7 years old and they're being bullied in school, mom would give them ice cream when they got home to make them feel better. So now they equate feeling better and being nurtured and feeling safe with eating ice cream. Logically, it doesn't make any sense. You can analyze that to death and say, well, that's not a great way of moving through the world. But that's not the part of mind you're working with. You're working with the emotional mind. Ice cream makes you feel better. It makes you feel safe. You need to feel safe right now. Mm-hmm. And so that emotional part of mind wins the conflict every time. And so what's fascinating about this work of hypnotherapy is that you're allowed to change the instructions. You're allowed to heal from that filing cabinet of hurt and pain and trauma. because you're the one who set up that filing cabinet. It's not to say it was your fault. It's not to say that, to blame the victim or say, it should have happened. It was wrong. That you should have gone through that trauma. But you're the one who set up the instructions. Granted, maybe as a child, probably more than likely unconsciously through duress and pain, but you're the one who set up those instructions. So that becomes very empowering because that means you can change them.
Right.
And that's where I said, a few minutes ago, I said, I'm not here to fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix anybody. You're going to fix yourself. Because who better to know what the problem is than you? And again, who better to know what the answer is than you? And that's in terms of the difference between talk therapy. Again, I think people spin their wheels sometimes in talk therapy because they don't know what that core issue is. It's behind that curtain. It's locked in the filing cabinet. But by just relaxing the mind and body, it's not really meditation because you want to use thought and you want to use imagination. You want to play pretend. Pretend you're opening up that filing cabinet. Pretend you're finding that file. Pretend you're shredding it or throwing it in a fire. You want to use your imagination. People come to me and say, well, I have a really overactive imagination. I have a really active mind. I don't think I'd be hypnotized. Oh, no, you're probably the best candidate for this work because this isn't meditation. It may feel like a meditative state because you're relaxing deeply, lying back in a recliner or on a couch or something. But this isn't meditation. We're not focusing on this moment. We want to use the past. We want to use the future. And we want to find those pain points so you can heal them. Not me. I'm not going to heal you. You're going to heal yourself. And again, I think that's another big difference between talk therapy and hypnotherapy in that, yeah, there are some modalities, healing modalities where you want that other person to fix you. I break my leg. I want the doctor to fix me. I have appendicitis. I want the surgeon to fix me.
Mm-hmm.
I go to get a massage. I want to, the massage therapist to work their magic. But there's, in talk therapy is the same way. I think a lot of us may go to talk therapy because we don't know what the problem is. We want them to figure us out and tell us what the problem is and how to fix it.
Yeah.
With hypnotherapy, this is more like maybe, a yoga instructor going to a personal trainer or something. They're going to help facilitate you doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, because personal trainer is not going to lift the weights for you. And a yoga person, you're not going to sit in a chair and watch a yoga person and feel better at the end of a yoga session. And same with hypnotherapy. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to help guide. I'm going to lifeguard and keep the situation safe and then do this healing work in a gentle way. But you're the one doing the work. And again, this is why this doesn't take a long time. This is, I've known people come to me in hypnotherapy say, I've been in talk therapy for 3 years and nothing's changed. And so we're not going to do like 100 sessions over 2 years. We're going to do 2 or 3 sessions.
And that's
what you even know what it is.
And that's what I think is really cool because, like you mentioned before, like you are the one that's solving your problem, right? Like it's not that, and that's especially in recent days or weeks, I've seen more people on social media, talking about like talk therapy or what their issues with therapy are, but my background as a personal trainer, again, clients would tell me, oh man, like I couldn't have done this without you, or like, it's because of you I did this. And I'm like, it's not me. You did the work. Like, I just helped you get there by telling you what exercises to do and so forth, but you're the one that did it. Right. And throughout our training sessions, like we would talk and we would solve other life problems just in talking and stuff like that. But that was never really the actual goal. Right. That was just like a byproduct. Right. And that's what I really think is super awesome about like hypnotherapy. And I actually have seen a few veterans basically talk about, their use of hypnotherapy and how that was the only therapy that's really helped them in diving into their subconscious. So you mentioning the fact that, we're not going to do this for the next 2 years, 3 years. It only takes a few sessions, right? Because you're solving your own problems. The answers. We just have to unlock them. So I think that's so awesome because that's one of the biggest things that people don't, why someone might not want to go to a therapist because we're going to sit here for, 5-10 weeks and we're just gonna keep talking. Like, no. So I think that's really cool. But I did want to ask you, rewinding a little bit back to the brainwave state, right?
Yeah.
And it goes into, right, you're conscious, you're, you know, kind of in and out of it. You're basically dozing off. Then you're like, you know, not awake, but you're not asleep, and then you're asleep, right? So the four
Right.
waves. What is there another state, let's say with like hypnotherapy, or is there another state for people that do, and I honestly, this whole, like, I've been trying to think of the name. You know, like when people do like the drug induced like vision quests. I can't
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't like
Yeah.
is it ashwagandha? It's not ashwagandha. I can't think of the name right now, and it's bugging me. But
Ayahuasca.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
does that bring you to another wave
Yeah.
state, or is it a same wave state? But then I know you mentioned like high beta. So is there different forms of wave states?
Yeah. So for the longest time, researchers thought, okay, our brainwave states just go from about 30 down to 1.
Mhm,
And we have beta, alpha, theta, delta, and there's subsections of those of as you're moving from alpha down to delta, or I mean alpha down to theta. There's that kind of subsections in between those. But it was really researching Tibetan Buddhist monks, and there's a great National Geographic. I wish I had it handy. I don't think I do, but there's a great National Geographic article, or the whole issues about it, and it shows this monk wired up with all the electrodes on his head. And researchers wanted to see what a monk who has been meditating 7 hours a day for 20 years, what their brains do, what their brains look like. And so they actually had, negotiated and got permission with the Dalai Lama, brought all these monks over to the United States to the research places, hooked up these monks. And what they found is they weren't, if consciousness is around 20 cycles per second, they thought, oh, they'll go down to alpha or theta or something. They actually went up, and they went up to 100 cycles per second. And it's called the gamma brainwave state. And so this is what they're saying is flow state, or getting in the zone. Of course, a lot of athletes know this, but a lot of, if you're doing anything creative, musician, you're painting, even of business, you're just getting into that flow state where it's like 3 or 4 hours go by and you don't even realize it, because you're being creative and you're in that state of high, creativity. But also they're seeing a lot of these people who do the more spiritual work. Now, I don't know if I'm sure they have at this point, but I don't know about the research of what the brainwave state is for like ayahuasca or any of those kind of uh, situations. Maybe the same, maybe it goes higher. But as my understanding is, if I remember correctly, they got super gamma now, and they've seen people go up to 200 cycles per second. And so this is what they're thinking, that maybe when you're having that spiritual experience, let alone that creative experience, or you're an athlete and you're getting into the zone to, what is a marathon runner? What does that take to, push yourself through once you hit, mile 15 or 16 or whatever, that you're not lowering brainwave state, you're actually increasing the cycles. And that's what is allowing people to reach these heights of not only creativity, not only in athletics or even business, but in terms of spirituality. And, there's a lot to uncover with all of that. And I'm sure, even I haven't been keeping up with the research, so who knows what's been going on the last few years, what they've linked it to. It'd be really interesting to see what brainwave state somebody gets into when they're doing something extraordinary, like an ayahuasca ceremony for a couple of days, and see where it goes. But nowadays, yeah, it's gone. I think they've gotten it all the way to about 200 cycles per second. And it was just basically kind of the limitations, maybe with the equipment they're using, and just finding people. It's hard to like maybe wire somebody up who's running, or a football player or something. It's probably hard to like wire somebody up. They need somebody who can sit and not move for a while. And for whatever reason, somebody said, I think it'd be a good idea to measure meditators, who are the best meditators in the world, and found something extraordinary. Our brains are, I don't even think we even have touched upon the potential of what our brains are able to do.
Yeah,
It's pretty extraordinary.
that's crazy. And like, I mean,
Yeah.
does that go into the same, like the whole brainwave state with like the monks? And I'm blanking on the guy's name right now. I was trying to look it up. The guy that was hiking, I don't know if it was Everest or something, but he made it to a certain level, but basically not all geared up and not, no clothing, just like in regular shorts, but being able to essentially direct, your pain, from
Mm.
and stuff like that. You know where I'm going with it?
Yeah, well, and it's also, isn't that with that, who's the breath guy? Win Hof,
Yes, that's exactly where I was trying to
right?
go. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the way,
it's like, how is that possible?
but it's
That you're sitting I mean, you should be getting hypothermia.
mhm,
Seriously.
right.
That's what happened to the Titanic people, right? Most of the people died because of hypothermia. They're in this cold, cold water. So how's this guy, he's probably, what is he, like 80, but he looks like he's 45,
Yeah.
and he's like doing these crazy breathing things and in the cold water. It's like, how is that possible? We're more extraordinary than I think we can ever imagine, honestly. Because and you hear about the extraordinary stories. I mean, I mentioned the grandmothers lifting cars off of babies and things like this. I think we're just more extraordinary than we give ourselves credit for.
Mhm.
And I think we have hypnotized ourselves to say, yeah, but not me.
Right.
Other people can do those extraordinary feats of strength or climb Everest without oxygen.
Mhm.
Or didn't, who's the snowboarder? Sean White?
Yeah, Shaun
Didn't he
White.
just snowboard down Everest or
I
something?
I don't know.
As his He like hiked up to, I don't know if he got to the top. Don't know if that was possible, but he hiked up to Everest. This was like his last, he's retiring or something. And it was his last big thing. He's like snowboarded down Everest. It's
That's
like,
crazy.
yeah, we're more, and even just watching the videos nowadays of what the skiers and the snowboarders, let alone uh, how extraordinary we can do with any other event in the Olympics or around the world.
Yeah, he
And
did.
if we can get our minds up to like that spiritual state of 150 cycles per second, I mean, what's possible?
Yeah.
They just had that crazy research come out about the quantum computer,
Mhm.
and how it solved a problem that the supercomputers of Earth was going to take 10 quadrillion years. I mean, if the Earth is 10 billion, this was going to take 10 quadrillion years to solve this equation. And this quantum computer solved it in 5 minutes. And they think that one of the reasons it did that is because it was pulling energy or information from other dimensions.
That's crazy. But
And so they think they just proved the multi-dimensional theory of the world, the multiverse. And so it's like, what does that mean to us as humans? And can our brains firing at 200 cycles per second access the multiverse or multi-dimensions or whatever? It's extraordinary to think about.
yeah,
And I don't know that we'll ever maybe have the answers, but we are more extraordinary than I think we give ourselves credit for.
100%. No, but
Yeah.
I was always like a little bit skeptical, like when they with that supercomputer thing, right? And they're like, it would have taken X amount of years for or the quantum computer it would take X amount for the supercomputers. It's like, so who thought of the question
Yeah.
that, and then who, like, how does that timeline even really work? How did someone think of a question that a quantum computer could even solve if it was that
Yeah.
complex of a question, right?
Yeah. It's going to take a little more diving in. I'm thinking they just had the supercomputer come up with a question.
Right.
What would be an equation that would take you 10 quadrillion years to solve? And it
Okay.
says, oh, it'd be this. We couldn't even ever figure this out for 10 quadrillion years. And it's okay, well, there's the question. And then all the fancy scientist people and their big brains, they're like, okay, yeah, that seems right. And, I'm sure they're they're sending it out to people. It's like, does this make sense? Does this work? Yeah, that works. Okay, well, let's see if the quantum computer can solve it. Oh my God, it solved it in 5 minutes. How to do that? I don't know. It's not possible on Earth.
That makes
I don't know.
that makes
It's above my pay grade, so I don't know that stuff.
no, that makes sense. But I mean, like the thing with like hypnotherapy with like the brain waves and stuff. Have you ever seen that movie Lucy? It's with
Oh yeah, yeah,
Scarlett Johansson. It was back in like
yeah.
2014, 2015. but how it was like going, and she was like, okay, now she's at 10% of brain activity, 20% of brain activity, and every level she was getting like more abilities,
Yeah.
essentially, like being like telekinesis and all that kind of stuff. And it's like we truly don't know how much the brain can do. I mean, I've seen monks and stuff do some crazy things, and it's like it should seem unreal or superhuman, but it's again just a different level of state or being that been able to achieve.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible. So I think that is completely true. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to ask one question, right? And I don't like
Sure.
to preface this question or give you a little heads up on it, because I want the organic answer. This is Craig's, Meriwether's legacy wall. And on this legacy wall, it's not a tombstone, it's a legacy wall. What is one message you would like to leave up and coming generations from that you've learned from your journey, from your teachings, whatever the case may be? What is that one deep message that you would like to leave?
Okay. It's something that I think we already touched upon. You actually mentioned it, Devin, earlier, but it basically comes down to what you practice, you get better at. What is strongest within your mind, within your body, is what you do over and over again. And so you can use that to your benefit. You can use that to destroy yourself. What you practice, you get better at. And so we know this from, riding a bicycle, or learning how to walk, or learning how to tie your shoes, learning how to play a musical instrument, learning martial arts. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing anger? What if you're practicing anger when you get in a car and drive on the freeway? You're just going to get better and better at connecting those neurons. The connection is going to get stronger. The communication between those neurons is going to get faster. And it's just going to get to a point where it's just, I don't know why I get anxious. I just do. I just get triggered and I don't know why. So a lot of this work that we do in hypnotherapy is there's kind of two parts to it. There's the deep healing work we do in sessions. If you're dealing with some trauma, or you just even want to get some confidence around a goal you have coming up, maybe you're doing a presentation, you're doing the keynote speech at the big conference, you want some more confidence around getting up in front of people. We help you with that. But the part two is, what are you going to practice at home, right? Because you just don't get to go to a personal trainer once, work out at the gym twice, and you're done for the rest of your life. We know this with our physical health. You're going to the gym, you're doing some sort of exercise, martial arts, dance, whatever you're doing something, hopefully every day, but at least 3-4 times a week for the rest of your life, right? So what about your emotional health? What about your mental health? What are you doing to strengthen your emotional health? Again, maybe not every day, but what are you doing 3 to 4 times a week? Hopefully every day, but what are you doing 3 or 4 times a week to boost your emotional health, your mental health, your mindset? And so a lot of this work is, yes, the deeper healing work in a hypnotherapy session. But then what's your daily practice of putting you can have all the joy, the happiness, the confidence, the abundance that you want, but it comes with some practice, right?
Mhm.
Just like learning a foreign language. It's like, yeah, you can learn that foreign language, but it's going to take some practice and doing it over and over again. You can have the joy. And just like maybe somebody practices anxiety, you can practice joy. And like you said at the beginning, so there's this fake it till you make it idea. It's like, yeah, that's a big part of hypnotherapy. Pretend that you have the joy. I bet you, I'm guessing there's at some point in your life, you felt joy. Maybe it was at a birthday party, or maybe it was just staring at the Grand Canyon or whatever. You felt some sort of joy. You can access that again, even by pretending, and focus it into the future. And this is where I was saying before, even having an overactive imagination is great, because you're fantastic at doing this work. Just plain pretend, just like an Olympic athlete will mentally rehearse. Of course, they're going to get on, if they're doing gymnastics, they're going to get on the mat and do the twists and the tumbles and the turns and all that. But they're also going to sit down on the recliner on the couch and mentally rehearse it, because we know that it will strengthen those neural pathways, even just by pretending. So pretend you have the joy, pretend you have the happiness, pretend you have the abundance, pretend you have the success, pretend you have the confidence. You're confident in a great many things. You're confident that you can tie your shoes. You're confident you can zip up your jacket. You're confident that you can boil water to make pasta. You're confident in a great many things. Those are maybe small things, but what does that feel like, that confidence? And now let's apply it to doing that keynote speech or talking in front of your investors about your business ideas. Let's apply it to that. And then this starts linking together. And it's pretty extraordinary. But like with anything, if you want a black belt in joy, if you want a black belt in happiness, a black belt in confidence, it's going to take some practice.
No,
But you can do it.
yeah, exactly. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
where can people connect with you, learn more about, what you got going on with hypnotherapy and NLP and everything like that?
So, as you mentioned in the beginning, my business is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, but with the power of things like this, what we're doing here with Zoom and StreamYard and things like this, I do most of my sessions over Zoom now. And so I work with people around the country and around the world. Just a couple of weeks ago, I worked with a professional basketball player in Iceland, of all places. And he got my name from somebody I worked with in Puerto Rico. So the world is getting smaller and smaller. But I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, so I know Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy is a mouthful. So if you just went to Google and typed in Flagstaff hypnosis, you'd see me there. Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I also have a test anxiety course called ACE Any Test, which is easier to remember, and not just tests like in high school or university, but all professionals have to take an exam, whether you're a plumber, electrician, a firefighter, real estate agent, but also auditions if you're a musician or an actor or you have a fear of public speaking. It works with that too. So that's a little easier to remember. ACE Any Test, and you can email me from either place.
Awesome. And then, guys, that will be in the show notes. Make sure you guys share this episode with a friend. We all know someone that's going through tough times, and maybe they've tried therapy, maybe they've tried other things. If they haven't tried hypnotherapy yet, I guarantee it. So make sure they reach out, or you reach out to Craig to maybe get them some help, get yourself some help, or really to get just better, right? This is what the Mindset Cafe is about, right? Is personal development. You want to get better. You have underlying problems. Let's get them solved. Let's get you, hitting next year with full engines going in that mind. But Craig, thank you so much for taking the time. It was awesome, and honestly, it was a great conversation, getting to learn really about hypnotherapy. So I do appreciate you for taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Devin, inviting me on the show. And honestly, those harder questions about ayahuasca and spirituality, those are deep questions, and so I appreciate you asking them and having that conversation with me.
Of course. Well, we'll definitely reconnect soon. But
Yeah,
great to have you on.
thanks.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to